Hey everyone, welcome to Live with Sara and Tasha. I'm Sara, the founder and CEO of Live Well Exercise Clinic.
And I am Tasha, our VP of Brand and Culture at Live Well.
And if you didn't know already, Tasha and I are the original clinical exercise physiologists and health coaches of Live Well, dating back to June of 2011, marking our 10-year anniversary this month.
I know, that's exciting, isn't it, Sara? We might have to do something a little fancy next week for that 10-year.
Ooh.
So we're really excited to join you today. Sara and I host these calls just to share our passion about exercise and the power of behavior change in helping you live your life to the fullest.
And one of our most exciting parts of the week is connecting with all of you here on Thursday. We love to see our Live Well family from across Canada join us. So just a friendly reminder, if you can see yourself on the screen, that means that we can see you also. We love to see your faces, so feel free to open up your camera. But if you're not comfortable, no worries, you can just watch along.
All right. So remember that the chat function is open. We do have everyone muted just so that we get a nice clear recording. And just in case on recordings, your face pops up big screen when you talk. So just in case you weren't ready for your YouTube debut, we have muted everybody. But again, feel free to use that chat and join in the conversation with us. So this week, we wanted to talk about excuses and examining our excuses. And excuses sounds like kind of a dirty word, but we all have them.
The word.
Yeah, and they're just our justifications for why we can't do whatever it is we either said we would do, or things that we know that we should be doing or that we want to be incorporating in our lives. And our excuses can be really sneaky. They're not always obvious, but they can feel like real kind of insurmountable problems. And so by bringing the light of awareness to our excuses, we can sort of shed some light and take away a little bit of their power. So that's really what we're kind of into talking about today. So, if you've got a healthy habit that you're trying to cultivate that's important to you, it behooves you to just really look around the excuses that you might have around that particular habit. So if you've tuned into a live with Sara and Tasha before, you might be starting to figure out that I'm a little bit of a learning junkie, or a lifelong learner would be a better way to say it.
Lifelong learner does sound, I like that
A
one.
little bit better than learner junkie, but I
But
am
you got us thinking, you got us listening when you said junkie.
I am that person who has a big stack of books on my bedside table, all nonfiction, and so loving to read and learn more. And a few years back, I came across a book by Gretchen Rubin called Better Than Before. Right away, the title sort of says, kind of something I'd be into. And it was all about building healthy habits and how our habits play into how we try to build better selves, healthier selves. And in this book, Gretchen Rubin describes what she calls loopholes. And these are ways that we justify breaking our bad or breaking our healthy habits or our good habits. And so really, it's a way for us to create excuses. And so that's what we are going to dig into.
And I just was turning off the notifications on my computer, which decided to ding, ding, ding. So today, as Tasha was talking about, we want to really kind of use these loopholes, we'll call them, that we create as a starting point for us to really examine kind of our own excuses. And you might be kind of already hearing some in your head of our typical excuses. We all have them. So nobody here is alone in thinking, oh, I'm embarrassed that I have excuses. We all have excuses. And so we want to really use this as a starting point and to see which ones we can really kind of bring and operationalize in our own lives. So I want you to think of an excuse that pops up frequently for you in your life and that really kind of derails you from building those healthy habits. As we go through these loopholes, you can kind of check in and see which of these loopholes applies to you. And even as we kind of work through these, feel free to type into the chat and share what your excuses are. Sometimes acknowledging them kind of takes the power away from them. And again, none of us are on our own in this. We all have excuses. So based on your own comfort level, feel free to chat away. I'm sure that many of the excuses that we all have, we can all relate to. So the first game that we play with ourselves is a loophole called false choice. And this is really where we hear ourselves saying, I can't do my healthy habit, whatever that may be, insert your healthy habit that you're working on because I'm too busy with fill in the blank, right? And by accepting this type of an excuse, we really relinquish our power, right? And we're not kind of choosing our own best interest. So an example of this that I like to use in my own life is even around the word busy. I'm not a huge fan of the word, and I often am asked or oh, you must be very busy. Or it's become a response to even, how are you? And the roots of even that question, how are you, was really, how is your heart? And instead of saying good, we often now respond with busy. How are you? Busy. And so I think it's important for us to reframe that word busy. And by reframing it, we're making a conscious choice that instead of the word busy, I have chosen to replace it with the word full. And why? Because every single thing that I put into my life and into my schedule is a conscious choice. And when we know that we have a full life, therefore our bucket of all of the things that we have chosen to fill it with is feeling full, I do feel that it actually kind of takes away that excuse of busy, because realistically, every single one of us can probably use that word busy as an excuse quite frequently. So I encourage you to think, how can I change these words in my life of busy and full? And so I like to say, and I choose to say, that my life is full, knowing that everything that I put in my life is a conscious choice. So think about if that kind of false choice loophole, if that pertains to you.
Yeah, I love that, Sarah, because it's so easy for us to just say, I'm busy, but really, I might be busy cleaning the toilets, and maybe that's less important to me, or more important, depending on the level of cleanliness,
Yep.
than getting something else. But I love how you said that it's all about choices, right? The second loophole that is described in the book is moral licensing. And a couple weeks back, when we were talking about rewards, we kind of touched on this piece on moral licensing. So, this is when we're saying to ourselves, I deserve, and then fill in the blank. So I deserve to take the day off exercise because I worked really hard in the garden yesterday, or I deserve that extra piece of dessert. And so it allows us to break that healthy habit and feel entitled to that decision. And again, it's okay to choose a piece of dessert, and it is okay to take time off. But when you examine that excuse, just see if you're letting yourself off the hook, or again, making a conscious choice. And you're going to hear Sarah and I talking about, really building healthy habits is about making a conscious choice in your best interest.
And nothing about this last year doesn't resonate with this one, which the loophole is lack of control. And there are things that we can't control, but we often
I don't know what you're
have.
talking about, Sarah. I can control everything in my life, or at least I'm trying very hard to.
I love it. We often have actually more control over our choices than we do acknowledge, and so it's typical or easy maybe for us to cite a lack of control over perhaps a situation or an emotion as kind of a viable reason to abandon our healthy habits. So if you hear yourself saying things like, "It's not my fault, but which allowed me to abandon my healthy habits." Something like, I didn't exercise today, but it's not my fault. I had to work late. There was a deadline and I had to get it done. If you find yourself making "it's not my fault" statements, then you're likely using this lack of control loophole. And again, if any of these are resonating with you and you can think to yourself of, okay, well, I have a lack of control loophole. I often say "it's not my fault." Feel free to share that into the chat if you feel comfortable. Again, if you're thinking it, probably many other people are thinking it. But this is a really easy one for us. It's derailing maybe our typical routine. But I think that we have to be prepared, if we are going to be planned and prepared to build healthy habits, that our routine is never going to be perfect. It's a great framework for us to say, hey, this is kind of how my day is going to be laid out, knowing that it's probably an 80-20 rule. 80% of it is going to go the way we planned, and 20% of it is probably going to get derailed. But that can't allow us to derail our healthy habits. What is our backup plan? What is our plan B? Are we planned and prepared and setting ourselves up for success? So if I'm always somebody who's saying to myself, well, it's not my fault, I didn't exercise today, I had to work late, and that's something that's coming up, maybe I need to make the conscious choice to exercise in the morning so that I cannot be derailed. It is a choice.
Yeah, that's a great point, Sarah. I love how you said that. It's sometimes it just comes up, but the fact is, if it's coming up, it's not my fault over and over and over again, then you know that potentially something has to change.
Mm-hmm.
The next loophole is called the tomorrow loophole. And I'm going to put my money on the fact that most of you, including myself, are familiar with it. And in fact, I've got a kind of a cute story about this loophole. So this is where we delay what we're going to do to some future date. So again, I'll use exercise as an easy example. So when we say it's okay, sorry, a fly just flew in front of my face. I didn't know if you could see that.
It's a real one for Tasha. She's really trying to cope with it right
now. No kidding. So, when you're saying, I'm going to start it tomorrow. I'm going to start doing that tomorrow. I'm going to do that tomorrow. And in my early 20s, as a kinesiologist, studying to be a kinesiologist, somebody who believes deeply in the power of exercise, I found myself going to the gym with a friend, and we would meet up at my house and we would walk to the gym that was only a block down the street, but we would often find ourselves at the coffee shop down the street instead of at the gym. And it became kind of a funny thing. And we would constantly derail ourselves and do something else than actually go to the gym. So we had said that we were going to get shirts made for ourselves that said, I'll start on Monday. And then on the back, we were going to put on the shirt, this time I'm serious, because we kept using this particular loophole and delaying. We'll do it later. We'll do it later. We'll do it later. And of course, that day never really comes if we continue to let that loophole work.
And when I hear the term tomorrow, I just think of the musical by Annie. And as a child, side story, as a child, I really believed that I could audition and that I would absolutely get the role of Annie, and I would practice singing at home the song Tomorrow. I won't sing that for you all today because I would love for you to continue to participate in our live episodes and not hang up on us today. But I believe that I could get a cute little ginger wig with curls in it, and I believe that I could rock it. The opportunity was never presented my way, which is the only reason I didn't do it.
I've heard Sara sing at the top of her lungs in the middle of a fitness class, so
It's
it
true.
can be quite shocking to hear the sound of music being belted out.
I could hit those high
I know
notes
that
though.
it's Annie, but she also does do the sound of music.
I do the sound of
Part of the
music,
soundtrack.
and the hills are alive, and I hit the high notes. I will just say.
I'm seeing in the chat somebody mentioning that I'm going to seed the grass in my backyard next weekend for the past 3 weekends. So yeah, tomorrow loophole working there.
So the next loophole is questionable assumptions. And sometimes we really give up the responsibility for our healthy choices by making assumptions without kind of questioning their logic. So I can definitely relate to this one, but this would be things like, I know that I shouldn't have a muffin, but this one's a bran muffin. So, I think that makes it fine. Or this one has blueberries in it, and blueberries, they have some fiber, and I hear they're pretty good for you. So I'm sure it's fine. Because we've exercised today, I think many of us can probably relate to this one, because we've exercised today, that makes it like, oh, well, we can have that cookie later because we worked it off in our workout. And really these types of loopholes allow us to relinquish the responsibility for our choices. And so we are truly kind of connecting to things that probably shouldn't be connected. So just watching out for those things and keeping kind of our healthy habits on track without almost diluting them, and taking away the success that we can have, is for this one, really that questionable assumption loophole. But I do this one a lot. I could probably share 3 different times that I've done this in the past week. So I'm sure many of us can relate to it.
I actually have a great example of this one, Sara. I worked with a lady early days of Live Well, probably back in 2011. And this lady said to me, hey, I got to get my kids to school. I got to get to work. McDonald's is the only breakfast choice. But it's not a big deal because I have the bran muffin. And so again, it was a questionable assumption, right? Like, was the bran muffin the healthiest choice that we could make at McDonald's? Forget getting out of McDonald's. We had established that that wasn't sort of in what was doable, where our readiness was at that moment. So we just looked it up, and it turns out that the Egg McMuffin, from a protein, a carbs, and a fat, is and now this was several years ago, so please, if you look it up and this information isn't exactly correct, perhaps the formulation has changed, but back then the Egg McMuffin was actually a better choice than the bran muffin, and so it was just a questionable assumption that that was the best choice. Believe it or not, our concern for others can actually be morphed into an excuse. And we all want to be of service for others. It's a great thing to do. It's a noble way to live. But we can sometimes use that as a way to derail our healthy habits. And I think any of us who have raised children can identify with this, and allowing the needs of others to come before our own needs. So though it can feel like the honorable choice, it can also sneak in as an excuse. So we need to take care of ourselves and not in spite of others, though. So remembering that me time isn't selfish. Sara and I have done a thing about me time here on this show, if you will. And I let this particular one operationalize in my life just yesterday. And when I saw Sara this morning, I had a small confessional at my front door, and I said, I didn't exercise yesterday.
And don't worry, I reprimanded her for it fully.
and I was going to, and I had to help my kids with homework. So letting that concern for others derail me there. And maybe a little bit of false choice came in there too. I was just too busy with the homework. So you can see how you can get a bunch of these little loopholes working together to really reinforce their power. But if I'm really honest with myself, there were moments where I could have done something rather than nothing.
And thank you for your honesty, first of all, Tasha. I appreciate that. And I also want to say that, Tasha did reach out to make a plan and to have accountability with that plan so that she is successful today. And I applaud that, Tasha. Another loophole is kind of what we call self-actualization. So this is kind of the YOLO, you only live once type of an excuse. Like, oh, if I truly accepted myself, I wouldn't have to make changes. We only live once mentality. That kind of is often a big, broad statement that we chisel down to give us the power to let go of the ability for us to build those healthy habits. And we know that, of course, self-respect, self-acceptance, these are very important. But focus and accountability are truly the backbone of a growth mindset. So we do need to kind of adapt and change with the phases of our life, and having these big, broad statements allowing us to not activate our healthy habits can be quite damaging to the process. So I know that I do that. Again, if you're thinking of any of those things, we encourage you to type them into the chat. It is true, we only live once, but isn't that the best reason for us to live our healthiest, most capable and active life?
I know somebody on the call is going, I'm just going to swing into it with a martini in my hand. So the last one we wanted to talk about today is something that Gretchen Rubin termed one coin as the loophole, and referring to the idea that you believe that one coin in your wallet isn't actually going to contribute that much to your wealth. So, but the thing is, we know that change, and we talk about this all the time at Live Well, it happens one small step at a time. So we also know missing one exercise session makes it easier to miss 2 exercise sessions. And when you miss 2 exercise sessions, sometimes that rolls into 3. And it can get harder and harder to get back at what you were trying to do when you miss one. So that one coin idea being, it's okay if I just miss or skip or sort of break my habit once, it's not going to make or break me. And while that might be true, it does make it easier to break it again. So again, it's not about being rigid necessarily, but just thinking about these things. And if they're happening a lot, and if you find yourself saying a lot, well, this time won't matter, this once won't matter, it's not a big deal. And actually, I have this conversation with my kids a lot around their diet. And oh, mom, why do we have to have this for dinner? I get a lot of that. And the issue is, well, if you had hot lunch at school and you ate a hot dog, and then you went to the birthday party and you ate a hot dog, and then you went home and you ate a hot dog, they were all just one-off moments, but they add up to something bigger. So that means that I have to be the vegetable police at home.
love it. I love it. One thing that I think kind of is a combination of everything that we've talked about here that has just come to mind is, um, there's sometimes a seasonality of excuse. I'm going to call it the season loophole. And the season loophole
Cool.
is,
I
it's a new
love
one.
that you're adding this. Are you going to
Yes,
write a book on the season loophole?
I am. It's going to be a bestseller. I can't wait. The season loophole is, you know what? I'm going to enjoy the summer. We've just been through a pandemic and it's going to be nice outside. So I'm going to be active all summer outside. And then I'll start back at Live Well, or I'll start back with my healthy habits in the fall. And the fall's really where this is going to, that the fall is going to be great for me. And then the summer doesn't go quite as planned, and we don't kind of stick with things. And why? Because we don't have focus and accountability and community, which are again the fundamental components of any type of successful change that we need. And then the fall comes and we think, oh, you know what, I'll wait till Thanksgiving. After Thanksgiving, I'm going to be much less busy. I just got to get through Thanksgiving. It's the first time that I'm going to have the family together now that we're all vaccinated and healthy and so forth. So I'm going to wait till after Thanksgiving. And then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, Christmas is coming up. Oh, really got to get ready for all of the festivities and all of the season. And I need, weeks to prepare for that. And I have so much shopping to do and preparation. I'll get January. January is going to be a great time to get started. And then, ooh, it's winter. And all of a sudden, before we know it, it's February. And then we kind of think, oh, well, maybe after Easter. And it is so easy to work ourselves through an entire year with this seasonal thinking loophole where we choose to offset, not just by tomorrow, but almost by several weeks or months. And we push forward our healthy living into the next season. And I hear it often. I hear it when people are actually working hard and trying to build healthy habits. I've even heard people share, in the month of April, oh, I think I need to take some time off from exercise because my granddaughter graduates in June and I need time to get ready for that. But is that really something that is the most important thing for us to focus on? Or is that something that we're kind of pushing past a far ahead season? So I just thought I would make that one up, add it in there, Tasha, because I do think it's something that it is in our human nature that we do is push off by this seasonality.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Sarah. I think it's kind of a combination of busyness and
Yeah.
tomorrow, right? Like
Yes.
there are these
Yeah.
busy seasons of our lives that we often say, well, it's the holidays. Like I really felt that when you said, it's Christmas or whatever,
Yeah.
because around the holidays, we tend to let that slide. Or even if you're on vacation, right?
Yes.
And go, well, I'm on vacation, there's nothing I can do. And yes, it may not be perfect what you're going to do on vacation, but letting everything slide can be a little bit dangerous because it
Mhm.
gets really, really hard to get back into it. And I've experienced it in my own life, and I've heard people that live well talk about it. Like, oh my goodness, I was away for 2 weeks and whew, this workout was tough. Or I was away for 2 weeks. And then when I got home, I had all this unpacking to do. And, it gets hard to get back into your routines. So the more structure sometimes you can create around those things, the better you are. And again, we all have excuses, and nobody is perfect, and that isn't the idea here. I kind of joked about my need to be controlling and control everything. That's not a really healthy either. Working on it, probably have a book on my bookshelf about it. So but it's about just recognizing it, and as I said, bringing the light of awareness to it and going, I do that. And then the next time it comes up, going, maybe I should look into the bran muffin before I just say it's the healthiest choice. Or maybe I should really think about how busy I really am. What is filling up the busyness of my life? Everything I value, or am I letting other people's schedules dictate how I spend my time, and therefore I have no time for me? And when you just shed a little bit of light on it, sometimes these excuses just evaporate
Yeah.
just due to the fact that you're aware of them. And it just becomes easier to work your way around them and stay on track.
And so, to help everyone stay on track, here are some things you can do this week to live well. The first one is examine your excuses. Be aware of them. Think of those words that we've used. And if you find yourself getting derailed on your healthy habits this week, jot down what your excuses are. And again, identifying them and acknowledging them gives us the power to actually overcome them and takes the power away from the excuse. Again, meet yourself weekly. So review the success of your weekly practice plan from last week, and plan for the week ahead. And of course, make a date with exercise. We can never forget trying to achieve 150 minutes a week if we can. It is the foundational habit from which all of your other healthy habits can grow. And create your new practice plan for the week ahead. Remember that a failure to plan is planning to fail.
We want to thank all of our Live Well members for joining us live today. It's so nice to see faces on the other side of the screen. If you are watching this replay and you are not a member at Live Well, please visit us at www.livewellclinic.ca. We invite you to be our guest. I saw an amazing little social media post at one of our clinics where one of our staff was Lumiere being our guest. I thought it was genius. It was so cute. So join us to be our guest. We'd love to host you at one of our clinics. If you don't already subscribe to our YouTube channel, please do. You can catch all of these live episodes on replay, and join us next week, same time, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and we are going to be discussing food triggers. Ooh, food
Ooh.
triggers. That's a
Have a
big
great
one.
week, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Joy hands. Woo!